On this month's episode of WromComms, we have
Automobilista 2 physics enhancements and a lot of geeking out.
Straight4 and Ian Bell releases new information on GTR Revival.
and Next Level Racing introduces a foldable rig for high-force sim racing. Greetings, Rommies, and welcome to WromComms, the podcast sharing the joy of sim racing and motorsports. Welcome, thanks for stopping by. My name's Ike, and I'll be the host today. As you heard from the introduction, we've got a lot for you for this 1 hour podcast, and alongside me, as always, will be the other two members of Vrom. That will be Serta.
Hi.
And Cody.
Howdy.
How are we doing, gents?
So you want to settle on 1 hour? Okay, let's go for 1 hour.
I mean,
yeah, this man put a time limit on us. Woo.
Yeah, man.
Clock's ticking. Let's get to it then.
Talk fast, then go home. But yes, first, and I think most importantly, we need to talk about the Automobilista 2 update. Moving to 1.5 and possibly one of the biggest physics overhauls. It's becoming a thing now. ACC's done it, and now AMS2, the biggest overhaul in sim racing history. Marrying the ISI engine and the CETA engine together under the Madness name, and just making everything work better. Serta, you've been actually speaking to some people who have the inside track on that.
Yeah, to be fair, Automobilista 2 started last year with the 1.4, which was already a physics overhaul, and then the others said, oh yeah, we should take a look at the physics. But I think even before that, Race Room had done that, and it was noticeable in the force feedback. And just a slight correction, IC and CETA are not game engines. I know because I got corrected this morning by one of the developers. They are something like a physics fundament where Madness lays upon and can work with. If I understood it correctly, and we're saying it in the news in our tomorrow, the listeners couple of days ago, IC has the physics calculations and CETA has the tire data.
Yeah.
And above all is the Madness engine, or to not call it the Madness engine because Razas have been working already for 3 years on that, the Madness plus engine that Reza has made out of it, fixing bugs and finding ways of communication and so on. But it's even more complicated than I just explained it, but let's leave it at that, because if not, we're gonna spend the whole hour speaking just about the Madness engine, IC fundament, CETA fundament, and whatever. But yeah, there's two things that Automobilista 2 brings with this update. One of them is the physics update, the physics overhaul, the checking of everything, including the force feedback. And the second is they bring dirt racing. Like, it's not only the physics of the cars, it's the physics of where the cars drive onto. You have dirt on tarmac, dirt accumulation on tarmac, and then you have wet dirt on wet tarmac, and you have driving line on tarmac that has been rubbered in, so you have to take care not to drive on the rubbered in wet tarmac because your car is gonna have less grip than normal. And oh heavens, I think it's similar to what iRacing has been done the last 2 months. Like, they've worked on their dirt physics, and Reza has not worked on the dirt physics. They have developed the dirt physics for these updates. So wow, like, and the force feedback feels different. You have more detail in the force feedback. You somehow it feels more realistic, but never having driven a rallycross car, I cannot tell you. I've only driven cards in a kind of speed professional, semi-professional way, so that's the only one that I can tell you. And the karts are the only class that have not gotten the 1.5 updates, so I cannot tell you from realism, but wow.
So I can understand why the changes that they've made would have an impact on the force feedback, even if the force feedback itself hasn't changed per se.
It has.
It has changed as well. Oh my goodness. Okay.
So they found a very important bug in the way that Madness talked to, I think, IC, but maybe also CETA. So in the way that Madness understood the physics of the car. After finding and correcting this bug, they went through all the cars that they had, checked all the physics of the cars, checked the communication to the wheel, the force feedback of the cars. So they didn't completely change the whole force feedback, but they went through all the cars and checked, are the physics okay? Is the force feedback okay? So they have at least tweaked the force feedback even.
Right, because from the last patch notes that I read, the issues they were having was the two engines intersecting each other, basically, with the tyres and the chassis, which you can understand would make a massive difference once they've fixed that. It makes it sound even bigger of a change, doesn't it? Because, I mean, ACC and R3E have changed. They made relatively small changes in the greater scheme of things that just happen to have a large impact on the driving.
Although the changes in ACC, I mean, where you before had 1 point of information per tire, now you have, I think it's 4 or 5.
Five, yeah.
Exactly. That's big. Like, you don't have one data point telling the overlaying engine, oh, so the tire is okay, the tire is not okay. You have now 5 saying, yeah, the tire is moving that way, moving that other way. So it wasn't as big as what Reza seemed to have done with Automobilista 2. But
Exactly.
it was big also, and
Oh, it was.
I mean, you said yourself from your experience and the experience of your buddies with ACC that there's a big change.
It's a massive, as I say, it's a relatively small change that has completely changed the sim to the point where I can now start to employ real driving techniques in the sim, whereas before it was either you're in a straight line or you've spun. It's a brilliant change. And brings it much more into line with the driving experiences that you have in R Factor 2, in iRacing, things like that. It's still not the same because the engine is still entirely different, and the exploits still work. They just burn the tires now. But the hot lap, like as far as hot lapping is concerned, you don't really care about tire longevity, do you? So the fast setups are still fast. They're just also abusing the tires now. Whereas what's happening with AMS is they have looked through every single car and fixed it, which is a much, much more involved, as far as the labour hours are concerned, it's a much more significant investment of time trying to make it as realistic as possible for all of us driving. And again, the CETA engine is another step beyond what you have in ACC. It's more along the lines of what you have in R Factor 2, where you have the entire carcass that is communicating to the physics engine. So
in fact, the whole team took a week off after the second hotfix and said, okay, like I was asking them some questions and they said, can you ask me next week? Because we are out of order. We're taking a vacation. And next week I'm going to be there for you. But this week, please forget about me, which I thoroughly understand.
Yeah, when the amount of work that goes into programming and making these simulators as realistic as they can be, you can appreciate that everybody does need some time off every now and then. A big change, and with AMS2 Community Cup coming up, it's going to be, well, we're going to be able to appreciate and enjoy all of the changes that they've made. Hopefully we'll get some of the rallycross cars.
That won't be possible, because they're going to have something like 20 to 24 drivers.
Oh, no, you misunderstand. I don't mean rallycross cars on a rallycross track. I mean rallycross cars on a standard track, which can be done.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Yeah, okay. That would be interesting, and the communities can choose themselves what to drive where.
I did that exact scenario in Project Cars 2, and it was a really interesting scenario, because obviously you can only put 15 litres of fuel or so in the cars. Obviously, I don't know how Ritza have implemented it, but 15 litres gets you about 2 laps of Spa, for example, but the tyres only last 2 laps as well. So what you end up doing is you can either drive carefully and sensibly and go slower, but you can make the tyres last another lap, which over the course of an hour, you're going to save several pit stops. Or you can drive hell for leather, burn the tyres out, and pit after 2 laps, because that's as far as the fuel's going to take you anyway. Really, really interesting. Really fun.
Let's see what the communities come up with. In any case, in the Automobilista 2 Community Cup Discord, I already warned the 1.5 is a big difference. So if you have not been keeping up, but most have, do train a lot.
Well, as Neil said in the Discord, we've never driven AMS2 before, so we've got nothing to base it on.
Yeah.
It's great. We're all starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of people who have driven it and do enjoy it and have played Project Cars 2 and really enjoyed that as well. So it's looking like it's going to be a good move forwards. Speaking of good move forwards, though...
Wait. And we have a question from one of our patrons saying that in his opinion, the cars in Automobilista 2, especially after the 1.5, are much less likely to spin, and he thinks that is unrealistic. What do you guys think? I have an opinion, but I want to hear yours first.
I think our dear patron, who we appreciate very much, is perhaps misjudging what is causing the issue, or what was causing the issue. The cars are actually very difficult to spin in real life. The amount that you have to push the car beyond where it's happy is so far beyond what you think that normally it's the person that gives out before the car does.
Additionally, I'll also add to that, the car will kind of let you know, typically, a little bit. Like, you'll feel it, unless you're driving like an MR2, and then it just happens before you realize it. But you'll feel something about to give right before it does, and you can usually act accordingly. When in sim racing, like, there's a lot of like the force feedback, like attempts to bring you that, but you don't have the same sense of G-forces and speed and just starting to feel it in your butt as it moves out as you would in real life.
It could very much be that the force feedback is now informing you more of what the car's doing, and you're able to respond to it. That's the reason why you're not spinning as much, is because you're being informed as to what the car's doing, and you're reacting to it as a racer would. As Cody said, everything that we've got in sim racing is an approximation. It's an estimate. That's the reason why exploited setups exist. It's the reason why you have really odd setups and driving habits that you have to develop to be able to drive in some of these sims. I've had people who are real life racing drivers come to some of these sims and say, yeah, I have to completely change how I drive to be able to be fast. Yeah, I can drive using my normal strategy in this sim, but I'm not quick. The esports drivers who have been doing it for years, and that's all they know the techniques. They know how to, as I say, in the previous versions of Assetto Corsa Competizione, if you slid the car, you were losing time. Now, anyone knows that any tyre and any car has a preferred slip angle when they're turning, and it's not always 0. So I dare say it, just because it's different doesn't mean it's unrealistic. If you've driven the cars in real life and it's unrealistic, give the feedback, because Rietza is very open to listening and they will take that feedback on board. But if you are basing it on your experience in a sim, it could well be that's just the most realistic simulation you've had, and we should be just thanking Rietza for it.
Next time that we have the opportunity, we should ask Mark Carol about the differences between real live racing and sim racing, as he does both in the ASRC. So, and it would have been great to be able to ask Albert Costa, but okay, he's got a couple of more important things to do. Yeah,
just a little bit, fighting for the LMP2 World Championship.
Exactly.
Nonetheless, we've been talking about how good the new update has been and just how impressive simulation is coming at the moment. There is a new quote-unquote simulation coming to the market, and I've got to say, I said prior to starting recording, I have very much drunk the Kool-Aid on Ian Bell. He recently had an interview with I can't remember who it was now. But he recently was in an interview talking about not only the history of Project Cars and GTR, but also GTR Revival and what the plans are going forward from there, and also commented on the failure of Project Cars 3, which Sert has had some opinions on. We have had
which he has nothing to do about. No. Never. He only has to do with success.
We have opinions, and I have admittedly drunk the Kool-Aid. We know Serta hasn't. Cody, are you joining me in the Kool-Aid party with regards to Straight4?
I'm half in Kool-Aid and half like, let's just see where this goes. But I will say I'm very much optimistic about this. I say that not because I believe in one man, Ian Bell, but because he got the GTR2 and a lot of the Project Cars team back together.
Yeah.
And we know from 2 previous formulas that is a proven for success. So hopefully Lightning can strike a third time.
I think with regards to Serta's comments about Ian absconding himself of responsibility for Project Cars 3, GTR Revival is going to be a massive litmus test on Ian's ability. As you say, Project Cars 1 and 2, GTR, all excellent games and simulations for the time. Project Cars, I can't remember who it was. When it was released, they described it as, you can tell that it's the Project Cars engine underneath Project Cars 3. They've just stripped it out to try and make it controller friendly. I think that GTR Revival is going to be a massive challenge for Ian Bell and his management. If he can pull a success out of this, I think that his ability to manage will absolutely be confirmed, at least as far as simulation is concerned. If it's a flop, then clearly it was just a flash in the pan. Project Cars came along at the right time. He had the right people around him. But again, as Cody said, he's brought the same people around again.
Yeah, but also mention GTR2 and GT Legends similarly. Like, those were also a similar crew, and he's taken a lot of people even from GTR2 and not Project Cars and brought them back. And that is one of the most, I think it's probably the most enduring simulator we have outside of Assetto Corsa. Like, GTR2 still has people playing it.
Yep.
There was an active modding scene at least up until 2018 or 2019 that is over 10 years after release. And that was all because of the success and the just beauty of that game and that engine, and that was on that ISI motor engine as well, same as a lot of the modern sims are based around. Speaking of AMS2 again.
By the way, Assetto Corsa also coming up to its 10th year after release next year.
Is it next year?
Yeah, it came out 2014, if I remember correctly. So it has an active modding community 10 years after coming out. But yeah, I mean that's not negating what you said, Cody. Much to the contrary. And one thing that I want to say, it speaks for Ian Bell as a leader, as a team leader, that he starts his own company, calls around, and people flock to his new company that had worked with him before. So anything that I may think or not think about him, especially reading his tweet feed, Twitter feed, X feed, whatever it's called nowadays, anything that I can think about him, not knowing him personally, just from his image, he is able to take his Rolodex and call the people and say, hey, I'm making something new also in sim racing. You want to come? And people say, yeah, where do I have to sign?
Yeah.
Really showing your age there with the Rolodex. There's been a few updates, teases. Of course, we have this. It was around at the time of the recording of the last podcast, but they have a logo for GTR Revival. So, okay, this is another interesting thing. I have a small hang-up about the name of what to actually refer to it as. Because I've been saying up to this point, GTR Revival. Now, if you're looking at the logo, you're going, no, Cody, that's wrong. It's GT Revival. But in all of the reporting, and even I think from some of the tweets from Ian Bell, it has been called GTR Revival.
Apart from
the
interview that that he had with. I'm just going through here. Where's it gone? So, there it is. Where's it gone? So in the recent interview that is on the Straight4 website, if you go to straight4.com, their most recent blog is obviously a history with Ian Bell. He refers to it as GT Revival.
Well, there we go. Okay.
So that may be a change. That may be an update. But obviously, the game's not come out yet, so who cares?
I've also been scrolling through his Twitter to try to find it.
He cares because he's a designer and he hates the logo if the logo and the names don't fit.
Yes.
Well, there is a branding aspect to that, but I'm just mainly like, what do I call it as I talk about it?
It seems to be GT Revival.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and as I've scrolled all the way, not all the way, but pretty far down his Twitter, I found the last time that he referred to it, and he did say GT Revival on that one. I had to scroll past him talking about some weird stuff.
Which means that GTR. What was the original GTR called?
It was just GTR. That was the first one, and then there was GTR 2 and GT Legends in between those.
Was exactly so GT Legends came before GTR 2.
Yeah, so that's GTR is clearly, it stands for something, but the series seems to be GT
Racing.
Which again, it's fine. Yeah, it could be GT Racing 1, GT Racing 2, GT Legends. Yeah, now we're doing GT Revival. That all adds up as a naming scheme. So if it was GTR Revival, then obviously it makes sense to change it.
And by the way, maybe you haven't seen it or you just glossed over it, but he published already a couple of, at least one screenshot from
That's
it.
exactly what I'm wanting to talk about. Yes.
Okay.
So he's published, I believe, 3 screenshots so far. Well, he and Straight4. I'm referring to them all as one entity for the purposes of discussing this. So the first screenshot was of the Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2. I'm not sure exactly of the track that it's at, but it has the general feel of the Nürburgring GP. I don't think it's that, but it looks like a European circuit, which is tremendously unsurprising. Although actually, I'm seeing here it's reported elsewhere. They're saying that it looks like Interlagos, actually. So not European at all, but built by Europeans. Designed.
Might very well be because they're using the Reza Enhanced Madness engine, as we know, because those two published a collaboration last month. I think we discussed it on the podcast even.
Yep.
That would make sense, Reza being South America based.
Brazilian based even.
I've got to say quickly though, what a common sense move. And that's, again, it's another one of those things like with Rensport. Just that he's making the right noises again. Working with the engine that he worked with before that has been worked on further through AMS. Project Cars was such a great engine. To have that engine be refined by a very, very talented and passionate, absolute racing nerds in the most positive context possible to keep looking at that Madness engine and improve it and then hand it back to the man who led the team that put it together. It's pure common sense from start to finish.
So there's a few things that they have also said that is also echoing the right moves, in my opinion. So 2 things. Number 1, they have mentioned a special single player experience, right? They said if the straight quote is, if you're into single player, we have something a little special for you. Well, yes, because if you think of Project Cars and Project Cars 2, they had this progressive career mode sort of thing.
Yeah, they had a ladder
start in the lower series and then move on up, through the ladder. And that was my favorite part about Project Cars and Project Cars 2. And through Assetto Corsa careers, there are people who make basically that over and over and over again in all of the different, formats that you could imagine for Assetto Corsa.
Well, the Kuno's Assetto Corsa career is something like that. You start in a in a Cinquecento, in an Abarth Cinquecento, and then move to driving a crossbow, and at the end you're driving a surprise Ferrari Formula One. So it had that also, only not as polished as Project Cars had it.
Yeah, I would definitely emphasize not as polished as Project
I
Cars.
was going to say as
Agreed.
well, that's the thing. I never got beyond the Fiat 500 because I can't drive front-wheel drive cars in Assetto Corsa. It just drags me out of the sim.
And that was part of the beauty of the Project Cars stuff, was that you had like forks. It wasn't linear.
Yeah.
You could go around a series you didn't like and do other series instead, which was really, really cool. And so they have, this team has a history of doing awesome, really, really good things with the single player experience that they're talking about. And I think that it'll be really, really cool. There's a lot of possibilities here, right? You could see sort of a breaking point sort of story incorporated like they have in the F1 games. I
don't
would want
think
to
they're
see
gonna
that a
do
little bit less. But they also have maybe, because they also say in this quote, the first part of this quote is a concept of how the Sims AI base can boost our single player experience. So him talking about the AI base makes me think, and this is a bit speculative, but it makes me think that maybe there's sort of characters in a way of, whenever you load up a single player race, like everybody on the racetrack is an AI, but they have a name, right? And then in certain sims, they'll have different strengths, and so some drivers will be faster than other drivers, like on a real track.
In Automobilista 2, they even have some character traits that are different for everyone. So if you notice a name on Automobilista 2 of the AI, you'll notice that it's going to have the same character traits no matter what you're driving where.
Oh, cool. So it's like racing online.
Well, you see, that's the thing. That's the impressive thing about it, is that it's in a similar vein to racing online, as in, you can recognize people drive with personalities. I think that is going to be a thing that comes to the GTR series for the first time with this. And I'm very excited for that. I think that would be awesome.
I mean, PCs and programming have come a long way since the GTR time, so hey.
Yep.
Absolutely. So he teased, going back to the screenshots, he teased that first screenshot. It was inside the car. We could see that it was the Audi GT3 from the inside. And then there was another screenshot shortly after of like an onboard facing behind, and it was two Audis. So you were onboard an Audi facing the other Audi GT3. Same model.
What, front to front? Yikes.
Yeah. Oh, back to front.
Didn't go well.
No, and I'm not quite sure what circuit they're at on that. Probably still Interlagos. But the other car that they teased, they put another pre-alpha image out this week, and it is of the inside. It's facing you can't see any of the outside, but it's of the inside facing the control panel, like the center console control panel of the 550 GTS, the Ferrari 550 GTS GT1 car.
Oh,
yes. And so it is confirmed that it won't all be GT3.
Yep.
Not just through the photo, but Ian Bell's like straight up said it. And also, we're gonna have Ferrari, either probably officially, is my guess, because that's a huge license for any sim to get.
That probably, I would make it very loud. That probably because I don't remember where it was, but I remember him saying, "Yeah, it doesn't matter how we call the tracks on the cars, is it?" And it was a very wink, wink, nudge, nudge way of saying, if we don't get the license, we're going to find our way around the license. Like, for example, RSS does. A couple of months ago, they published these GT3 cars, and they call it GTM, if I remember correctly. And they have a Biro, which, of course, is a BMW. But no, it's the Biro. So
I am so happy you said that, because I have been poring over this photograph since it was released, because something felt really familiar to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at it, and I pulled it up, and I could not shake a familiar feeling. Of course, like anytime you see a 550 GTS, it'll look the same. No. So I had a hunch.
specific one.
It's a specific 3D model.
Excellent.
So I pulled up in Assetto Corsa the Race Sim Studio RSS GT Ferruccio 55, the Race Sim Studio analog to the Ferrari 550 GTS Maranello. And I pulled up the inside and I went into Assetto Corsa Content Manager showroom. I angled the camera in the exact same way, and they look really, really similar. Really similar.
Many ways why they could. First of all, if they are based on the same car, you expect them to be really, really similar.
I thought that too. But there are two things that are I don't know if I would call them shortcomings, but they're tells of the RSS GT Ferruccio mod versus this. So one is the ducting. There's a duct that is on the center console just below the like 3 circles on the dashboard. There's this little thing that it runs like a little hose that runs, not a little hose, a big hose that runs through the middle and then points it at like the driver's crotch area, I guess, for cooling. That
to keep the very important parts cool.
Yeah, so that shape is exactly the same. The 3D modeling is exactly the same as it is in the RSS GT Ferruccio 55. Additionally, the texture on it looks like it has just been upscaled, but it is the same coloring exactly, and it is very, very similar banding, if not the same banding.
Do you know if RSS built their 3D models themselves, or if they
build all of their 3D models themselves?
Okay, so they don't buy them, because I know there are companies that just sell 3D models of cars.
Yeah, RSS, they do not cut corners at all. You can see, like, they'll post like progress photos every now and then of their 3D models. RSS, United Racing Design, they'll all make their own. And then, so that is one. And then there's another one that's I think the major tell is the seat belt. So the seat belt comes out from the seat of the car. It's a red seat belt, and it comes off. It splits into 2 areas, and then it meets the metal clicker,
clasp,
right? Yeah, the clasp, and the actual mechanism of the red seat belt comes out from there and then comes to rest. That curve is also the exact same. And I mean the exact same.
So what are you trying to say, Cody? Are you trying to say that they're working towards implementing mod support to the next, let's say, Slightly Mad Studios game?
I can hope that there is mod support. I don't think that this exactly tells us that there is mod support, but I think what it does tell us is that Race Sim Studio and GT Revival are working together to bring their cars into GT Revival, and I will put that on the line right there. I absolutely believe that they are working with Race Sim Studio themselves. I think that this is a Race Sim Studio model. It is important to note there are a couple of differences that people who might be a bit more skeptical might be calling out. So the floor on the passenger side has a little bit different detail between the 2 models. There's like an extra box, I think, in the Race Sim Studio model that's not in the GT Revival model. The red button and the green button on the top right of the steering wheel are switched. They're not different, but the colors are switched. And the sequential shifter knob, I think, is been remodeled. Those are 2 different models of sequential shifter knob, but I believe overall that this is the same 3D model, at least used as a base, as the Race Sim Studio one. Either Race Sim Studio is working with them on it, or they have licensed it from Race Sim Studio, and that might be how they're avoiding a Ferrari license, potentially, especially if Ian Bell had said that. I hadn't heard of that before. But yeah, if he has said that, then that makes total sense, because Race Sim Studio, they're of the same idea around how we get around, licensing versus cars, is creating a facsimile without the actual branding involved.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, there's your original reporting live on air. I am taking a wild guess Actually, a very informed guess based on this screenshot that RaceSim Studio is involved in this project in some form or fashion.
Cody's putting his line in the sand there.
Yes.
Cool. Well, in case you weren't aware, we are now recording this live in Discord in a room that is accessible by our patrons. Thank you very much, as always, to our patrons over at patreon.com/RomVrom for their support and their ideas, and also to our members for their support here on YouTube. If you're a patron or member of at least the Formula 4 driver or bronze level, you'll be able to hear us record the podcast, as we're doing now, warts and all, and we'll be able to react and ask questions in our chat. Even more of a reason to become a patron. So finally on to our final teaser subject, and one that is perhaps a little bit more dry, but it's something I wanted to get out because it's irritated me for a long time, these foldable sim rigs that we have at different price points. And I mean, I've now bought a cheap one as well, just to put my money where my mouth is, to say that it's not the best. Next Level Racing last month brought out a new foldable rig, specifically designed to deal with high force or high torque sim wheels. You're right.
Yeah, high force sim wheels, but low force DD wheels.
It was for low force sim wheels, yeah. For low force DD wheels, yes. So it's not a bill and end all, neither is it claiming to be. But as far as I could tell from the pictures that we've seen, the main difference is they've now strapped the pedal base to the wheel arm, if that makes sense. So what they're now doing is adding more stress or vertical stress to the member that is already under quite a bit of stress holding the wheel up. And there is reinforcement going back the other way as well. It feels as though you're paying about £40 extra for snake oil.
On the other hand, it's like, I think they say it supports up to 13 Newton meter. So you can put the low force Fanatec and of course Camus and so on wheels on that. And foldable rigs did not have any DD support at all. Like I wouldn't put my SimuCube on that, but I don't need a foldable rig. And they have at least one place for a shifter even. So I think for that price, it's a great proposition. At least from what I understood, you can leave everything on the rig and then move the rig aside. And if you have a CSLDD from Fanatec or something like that, I think it's a very good proposition. You're racing on the community room, and then at some point your kids want to play Last of Us, or they want to watch whatever it's hot on Netflix, and then you rig at a side. So hey,
well, I can give you an actual use case because it's my use case. I use the same monitor, and I use the same monitors for work on my work PC as I do with my home PC when I'm sim racing, which means that I need to have my sim rig fold away so that I can use an office chair. You know, like I can't really do office work from a sim rig. So when I am sim racing,
you're in the wrong work.
I'm absolutely in the wrong work. I totally agree. So when I'm racing, I fold out my nice new sim rig. And when I'm playing other games that don't require the sim rig to be out, or if I'm working, then I have my normal gaming chair that I use. The issue is with these rigs, though, is not the front to rear movement, it's the side to side movement. The whole rig wiggles when you're using it, and there is no reinforcement in that axis that they've changed. So all that's going to be happening, and don't get me wrong, I had the difference that it's made to my driving is undeniable, because I can now, even on my Logitech gear wheel, I can feel the vibrations through the rest of my body because the wheel is essentially attached to my chair. So it is what I said before about it being a waste of money. If you're in an office chair, if you're at a desk and you are using your office chair and you can pick one of these things up for between 30 to 60 euros or 40 to 70 pounds, absolutely worth the investment. Any more than that, don't do it. There's no point. You could probably design something that folds up and have it more specific to your use case.
On the
Make
other
it out
hand,
of wood.
those 30 to 60 euro rigs won't be able to support any kind of DD wheel.
As I say, I feel like the new rig isn't going to be able to anymore support it either. The way that they've built it is not going to give any more reinforcement, like laterally speaking, than any other of the chairs on the market. Yeah. As I say, you're paying £40 for what is essentially snake oil in my mind. I feel like there is a use case for it. Heck, I am one of the people with that use case, but not for the amount of money that they're asking for. That's me off my chest. The one thing that I will say is that the Next Level Racing ones do have a very, very comprehensive hinge structure, let's say, where everything comes together and is folded out from, and it is a lot stronger than the fixing methods that the rest of the cockpits have. It doesn't make it... Again, the issue is not the hinge here, it's you've got so much weight and so much force, even on with a low level steering wheel on such a long lever, it doesn't matter how rigid it's going to be, the natural flex of where that fixing point is and isn't is going to cause issues. And when you've got those straps, all they're doing is they're increasing the strain on the pedals. In reality, what they would have been better off doing is fixing it to the chair. And this is, again, is something that I'm working on when I have time. I do actually have plans to modify my rig so that it has straps alongside me holding the wheel more upright, because that part of the wheel doesn't have a hinge or anything. Taking the slack off of that and making the chair and all one unit may actually make a difference.
Okay,
so,
let us know how it went, and
there's so much stuff I need to do,
and make a video about it, maybe.
Yes, I know. I've not even said anything publicly about the G29 quick release and mods that I've made. Oh, surprise! If you are running, and I will say this with hearty recommendation, if you are running the Logitech wheel, or specifically Logitech pedals, and you don't quite know what to do, you want a load cell, or you want to improve your braking or anything like that, and again, not paid, bought my own, look up AxiSim. They have a product called TrueBrake, which is essentially a linear potentiometer, which is all a load cell is really, attached to a very high compression spring, which you can change out, and then it just attaches to the bottom half of your existing Logitech pedals and essentially gives you a load cell with none of the complicated circuitry which can fail. Load cells which are unreliable as well. Yeah, it's honestly so good. Getting towards the end of the hour that we've allotted. Are there any other quick topics that you gents want to bring to the fore that people might have missed from the past month?
I have one, and I think Sorta may have one.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually not from the past month, but it's upcoming. I think it will still be going on whenever this is posted. But if you're listening to this shortly after release, and you are just getting into sim racing, or you're looking to expand your collection of sim racing titles, Humble Bundle is having the Ultimate Sim Racing Bundle Victory Lap, in quotes, where they're bringing back the Ultimate Sim Racing Bundle for another limited time. It is including Assetto Corsa Ultimate Edition, worth the price of admission alone, Automobilista 2, Assetto Corsa Competizione, NASCAR Heat 5 Ultimate Edition, R-Factor 2, the original Automobilista, and Drift 21, all for $13 total. If you do not have any of these titles, with maybe the exception of Drift 21, because I don't know that one, but if you're into it, sure, that is cheaper than you can get, I think, any one of these on a normal day. So,
normal day, yeah.
Yeah, Automobilista 2, worth the price of admission. ACC, well worth the price of admission. Assetto Corsa, usually you can find that at a deal, but this is also a deal, so there.
It's the Assetto Corsa Ultimate, so it's all DLCs, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Oh, it is Ultimate. Okay, so
it's the Ultimate Edition.
Excellent.
So save yourself a few extra bucks there. And R Factor 2, also worth the price of admission. And Automobilista, I think, also isn't terribly cheap either on a regular day. So all of these, like $13 is a good price for any one of these games. But if you want all of them for a total of $13, hurry over to Humble Bundle and get it. I cannot recommend these titles enough.
Just for what it's worth, Drift 21 is published by 505 Games, if that sounds familiar. That's the same as Assetto Corsa Competizione. Looks like it is another Unreal Engine 5 kind of game, which is just, it's focused on car customization and drifting, shockingly.
We did a review when it came out because we got a key. And it's like, well, if you get it on the Humble Bundle, you'll test it yourself.
Well, it's currently £24.99 on Steam. So for the £10 that GBP that you have to pay to get hold of the rest of the pack, I mean, it's worth it.
Personally, I'd say get Assetto Corsa and any of the many drifting mods and drift tracks, and you'll be better served than with Drift 21. But that's, I mean, to each his own.
Well, for $13 if you get it, you can try it.
Exactly. I mean, like
both of those solutions exactly. For $13 in this pack.
Automobilista 2 alone would be
It's
excellent
$40
for
by
13.
itself for Automobilista 2.
Exactly.
So
and
this alone is Automobilista 2 over 75% off.
You get R Factor 2, you get Automobilista 2, you get Assetto Corsa Ultimate and Assetto Corsa Competizione, although for that you may want to get a couple of the DLCs. Those 4 alone are like the basis of sim racing. Race Room you can get for free, the base game. iRacing, well, if you want to sell your kidneys at some point in your life to finance sim racing, you may want to go iRacing. NASCAR Heat 5 is more of a sim kit, but hey, whatever. So $13 for that. It's like really run, don't walk to get it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Get it.
But change it so that Humble Bundle gets not much because they would want to get the biggest piece of the cake. Change that so that either the developers or the charity of your choice gets the most, and put Humble Bundle to the minimum, absolutely minimum that you can put it.
Pretty much. I have one more topic. I'm the one that put that quick topic in there because I have an opinion. Shocking. Fanatec recently reduced the price of their CSL DD once you have put it with a wheel and pedal pack, and the base itself gets $150 off. And I have expressed the opinion that this is in response to the Camus C5 being released. And I have had other people saying, no, don't be silly. It's actually in response to Moser reducing the R5 or the R9 pack down to €500.
It can be both.
It can be both. I think that Camus is scaring the other manufacturers a lot more than they're letting on, and long may it rain. As far as I'm concerned, I will put my foot forward once again. Camus, if you are listening, I have every intention of getting hold of an LP8 when it releases and tearing it apart and making some kind of review on it, because it looks to be an absolutely fantastic wheel in a unique form factor that, given about 3 weeks, there will be plenty of stuff to not only build with, but also build from with that wheel. The other thing, of course, is that it's a physically smaller wheel in height to any of the competitors, and I think that's going to be a fantastic thing. So yeah, I think that Fanatec is trying to take even less on their CSL DD to try and keep up with Camus specifically at the moment.
And who should be very, very scared are Thrustmaster and Logitech, because they're DDs, they're low-power DDs for around $800 to $1,000 euro. Why would I want to buy that?
Yep.
Competition is always good and always benefits the consumer.
How much is the Thrustmaster direct drive? Oh, it's £600 on its own. And that is, I can't remember what rate it was. That completely fell off my radar. So the Logitech wheel, I kind of feel as though there's a home for it. Because it isn't the between 5 to 9 Newton meter of the CSL DD, the Camus,
it's 10
that
Newton
sort of thing.
Meter, so
so it's 12. That extra 2 Newton meters. Yeah, the extra 2 Newton meters is exactly the same amount of force as my whole wheel puts out at the moment. So it is a very notable change. There is a lot going on in the ecosystem.
For 1,000 euro USD,
absolutely.
I mean, if I have 1,000 euro USD to spend, I don't go Logitech 12 Newton meter. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not saying that at all. And if I had £1,000 to throw at sim racing, then I would absolutely go and just get a Fanatec 8 Newton meter, because that's all the power that I'm ever going to need. And
first you become a patron of RomRom, and then you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So
first I'd set aside some money to invest in RomRom, because clearly they have so much variety to their coverage that it makes it a really engaging channel to watch.
A note on the Fanatec's pricing, at least in the United States, which is what I'm looking at. If you're spending $1,000, you're either going up $200 and you're spending $1,200 on the Podium wheelbase DD1.
Yeah.
The DD2 is $1,500, so that would be out of your price base. But the CSL DD, that's the 8 Newton meter one, is $450 right now.
Well, that's rude. That's really interesting. Is that in the country? Because I know you have a shop that's selling it there.
Well, this is from the Fanatec.com website. It's the US site.
Ouch.
But this is the Fanatec.com website. And
that's
a $50
lot of money.
Discount to $450.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to be... okay. So, yeah, they're not that scared of Camus in the US market, but clearly the European market is starting to twist the screws.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What is the strength of the Camus wheel again?
So the Camus C5 is 5 Newton meters.
Okay, so the CSL DD at 5 Newton meters, they have 2 different versions of it. The CSL DD at 5 Newton meters is $350.
Yep.
Which is around the price of the Camus.
Yep.
Yeah. But the Camus C5 is a much more compact package and has the wheel built into the motor, basically. I still want to take one of those apart as well and see if we can see if we can make something that allows you to have a non-round wheel on it, because I can well imagine that that's going to be the darling of the drift. I say this with love, with the drift bros, the ones who are just in sim racing for drifting. I can well believe that the C5 is going to be.
In fact, Camus has a video showing the C5 in action with drifting.
Yep. If that is absolutely their target audience, and I totally understand it. The only thing that they have that counts against the Camus instead of the Logitech is that the Logitech comes with 3 pedals.
Yeah,
that is a huge thing for drifting.
Exactly. And that's where it becomes even more interesting, because they released the 2 pedal set. If they also have a load cell brake pedal, if I remember correctly. Oh my goodness, because I was salivating over them somewhat. But if I remember correctly, they do actually have a load cell brake pedal on its own, which means
they have a bundle with pedals.
They do have a bundle with pedals, but it only has 2 pedals, not 3.
Yeah, and for drifting,
you need the clutch.
Yep.
So perhaps they will end up making something happen there. Where is the individual? I'm sure I saw an individual pedal here, because the other thing that the Camus pedals offer is that wonderful adjustment that you're paying Huiskenveld Sprint prices to be able to. It's only the 3 pedal set, but that said, it's $239 for at the moment on the Camus site for a 3 pedal set.
Ooh.
That is adjustable. Yeah.
That brings the complete set to a high price. In any case, Fanatec are clearly reacting to the market and are clearly trying to keep people coming into their ecosystem with that offer.
Yes, and I think with the brand recognition, it's going to be successful. I think there are enough people who are into Fanatec that basically Camus are going to be the thing that makes a lot of people buy Fanatec just because the price is so low. We'll see. As I say, I want to get my hands on an LP8, and I want to put a USB interface into it, and I want to make a custom wheel that looks amazing. And I am very, very biased there.
We asked
We
exactly.
did,
and they answered. We asked top 3 drivers for them.
Yes, and there were
male,
some
female,
fantastic
diverse. Yes, they were some great answers. So let's go through them and then ourselves give our answers.
I think mine actually, some of them changed since last month as well. I loved Wibble Wabble Woo 6249's answer of Latifi, Maldonado, and Mazepin. Only joking, but I'll let you two. let you two go first.
Go ahead. Cody.
Okay. Well, anyone who knows me and last month on the podcast, I also kind of alluded to it. But favorite driver of all time by far for me is Jeff Gordon. I don't think I would be a racing fan at all without Jeff Gordon. In his just absolute dominance in the early part of his career, which I wasn't around for, solidified him as a legend that everyone talked about. And then growing up as a kid watching NASCAR on TV every weekend, which in America in the early 2000s was just about the only form of motorsport you were going to find on non-cable TV. And it was Jeff Gordon and the purple car with the yellow and orange flames, who was always there at the front of the pack every single time. And then he was getting wins. It was awesome. Just as a kid, like, he was my favorite driver. And then everything that I learned about him as I grew up just made me like him even more. He is by far my favorite driver. He's awesome. Number 1 by far. And then number 2, similar, like, extreme personality, and interestingly enough, a Jeff Gordon fan. That gives it away. If you know, you know. It's Jordan Taylor, Corvette racing driver. He still races in IMSA. He's raced at Le Mans. He took the Corvette to victory at Le Mans in 2015. And then outside of that, my third is also a Corvette racing driver, Jan Magnussen. He's just really, really cool. I always loved seeing him drive with the Corvette racing team. That, like, 2010s Corvette racing team, all of them are just awesome. Oliver Gavin is a close second behind him, and of course Antonio Garcia I cannot ignore as well. So
it started smelling of
those are my top 3.
Barbecue and beer here.
Well, 2 Americans and what is he, Dutch?
I'll say, why am I turning red, white, and blue?
But yes, a NASCAR driver and all Corvette racing drivers as my top few.
Okay, so I want to come back to what our viewers, our commentators wrote. Like Jean-Pierre Sarti said, Fangio, Clark, Graham Hill. Yes, I'm old. Well, Fangio, it's an of course. Clark, I understand for many people why. And Graham Hill, yeah, of course. But Fangio is, of course, in the pantheon of driving for almost everyone, I suppose.
Yeah.
Let me check. Who else do we have here?
I love Punta Taco Simuladores saying Senna, Tom Christensen, and Keiichi Tsuchiya. That is a great lineup. Holy cow, that's a great lineup.
And for those who don't know, as I didn't, Keiichi Tsuchiya is like the godfather of drifting.
He is the man that Initial D is based on.
Wasn't he also featured in... He actually cameoed in the Fast and Furious film.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
he was one of the fishermen.
he was.
I think he was also stunt coordinator or stunt
He
supervisor,
drove a lot of
like
the stunts you see in the film.
Exactly.
That sounds right.
So
that sounds right.
Also,
Dorifto.
Super GT winner, Le Mans racer as well. He's been everywhere in addition to just being a drift legend.
Thank you for that, Punta Taco Simuladores, because I confess, I did not know of him, and now I'm a little bit wiser because of that.
I didn't know that he took on Le Mans. I knew of his legacy, not how to pronounce it, but I knew of his legacy. I never knew that he went to Le Mans. I need to look that up now.
He drove a Honda NSX, I believe.
As he should. Excellent.
That was 1994.
Certi, your top three?
My personal top three. I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's not 100% three, it's more four. So, not to take anything away from the Fangios we've talked about, the Sennas, the Christensens that, for example, Punta Taco Simuladores said, or Alonso with his laid-back way, or, of course, Mr. DTM Bernd Schneider, who won 6 DTM championships, which is not an easy thing to do. But my names are Ellen Lohr, who many don't know, but she's a German female driver. She's driven DTM, truck racing, Dakar in a truck, German Rally Championship, and currently she is driving Euro NASCAR at 57 years of age. That lady has gasoline in her veins. There's no blood left. She is running on petrol. Like, if there's something to race, he sits down and race it. And I think that's incredible. I admire this passion for racing, and put me in anything. And doing Dakar in a truck? Wow.
Probably the safest way to do it.
I'd rather do it on a truck than in like one of the motorcycles or a four-wheeler.
What I will say as well, however, is there is an YouTube channel called B Sport who makes very, very short videos, and actually made a video on the aerodynamics of Dakar trucks. And the entire back of Dakar trucks are actually empty. They are used for aerodynamic benefit and tire storage, and that's it.
Moving on. My second name is Charlie Christina Martin. She is a trans driver, and her uphill battle started when she realized she was trans. Then she realized racing cars was her passion. Like, she already was a driver, and then realized, I have to transgender because I don't feel comfortable in my body. So she's a transgender woman racing cars. The thing is, where she started racing was in hill climb. Of course, she's hill climbing. She's been climbing a hill all her life. So she took that by the horn. She's doing endurance. And, well, you need endurance to survive. And by the looks of it, she's happy with her life. And that's great. So one of the things she professes is, what's the point of living if you're not living as you? And being true to ourselves is something we should all strive to, on track and off track. So, I don't know, being a race driver, it's always taking calculated risks. You go to the limit knowing where the limits are. And I can't imagine anything more risky than confronting yourself and being brave enough to be true to yourself no matter what. And saying, okay, I'm a race driver. From now on, I'm a female race driver. So, balls of steel, or ovaries of steel in this case.
No, they're still balls. Women have girl balls. It's fine.
My number 2B would be Michel Mouton, who was a Group B rally driver, and arguably the best Group B driver of all times. Look her name up. There's even videos on YouTube about her, and those Group Bs were monsters.
One of my favorite things that came out that comes out of the discussion of women in motorsport is, look, at the end of the day, the stopwatch doesn't care. If you're fast, you're fast. And I have always loved that about motorsport. It was part of the reason I got into it in the first place was because of that genuine equality that you have. It doesn't matter how old, how young, whether you're male, you're female, or whether you don't identify as either, or whether you have legs even, because there are cars that can be adapted. All that matters is that you're fast. And if you're fast, you can get a position in racing.
So since you have a theme, I need to add a honorable mention of Catherine Legg. Fantastic endurance racing driver. She's also raced in the Xfinity series in NASCAR as well.
DTM also?
DTM. IMSA. She's fantastic
Agreed.
driver. Formula E as well.
Oh yeah, of course. Good grief, I remember that. So I want to draw attention to Aperture Science 2's comment. He said it's Jim Clark, Ayrton Senna, and Lewis Hamilton. And I do agree with one of his suggestions. I had two, really. But Jim Clark absolutely taught me to drive like a gentleman. And my very ethos when it comes to being on track comes from the way that Jim Clark always drove. You can be ruthless, but you always drive as if you were in the other car. He was one of the first true real racers who upset people because he would drive aggressively. But he wasn't aggressive by today's standards. He was still gentlemanly in how he drove, but he was preeminently fast and drove like you'd want to be raced. Well, like you'd want to be raced against. So Jim Clark taught me to drive like a gentleman. Jason Plato taught me to defend. His run of front-wheel drive touring car stints throughout the 90s and early 2000s set him apart as me. And again, another one of those personalities that you can't help but love or hate. Obviously, I fall on the love side. And finally, the man who taught me to be fast is Michael Schumacher. As much as time has moved on, he will forever live on as one of the greatest champions, and much like Senna, one of the most interesting people who, outside of the car, would be egalitarian and kind and loving and generally a fantastic person, but once he was in the car, absolutely ruthless. I don't think that, to my conscience, I could ever be as ruthless as he was, but bless him, he was genuinely one of the most fantastic people to watch do his thing, even more so than Lewis is now, even with a car that isn't working for him. The way that Michael made the car dance was absolutely one in a million.
So Michael Schumacher was my number 3 because remember Michel Mouton was my 2B. There's favorite moments like Schumacher walking on water in Barcelona in 1996. It was raining cats and dogs, and you saw him, and it was on the dry, and you were like, "What?" Or of course, the battle against Alonso in 2006 at Imola, which Alonso won. But you saw Schumacher after that battle coming out of the car with a grin from ear to ear because he had enjoyed himself so enormously. And for me, these battles were great, but for me, there's 2 reasons why he would be also my number 3. Hungary, 1998, I think it was. Braun tells Schumacher he has to do 19 quali laps in the middle of the race. Schumacher just says okay and delivers because he trusts Braun. If Braun tells him he has to do that so that the strategy works, he'll do it. Schumacher wins that race, which seemed impossible to win. And that ties to my number 2 reason. Schumacher was ruthless, intelligent, was whatever, but he also had the intelligence to get a team around him at Ferrari, of all possible places, that made the package full. Ross Brawn, I already said, but he had Jean Todt keeping the Ferrari higher ups at bay. And I'm pretty sure that was not an easy thing to do. And he had Rory Byrne, who doesn't get as much recognition as he should. Those 3 people around him helped him become the racer that he became and get the wins that he got. And I know for a fact that when he went into Ferrari, one of the things that he did was say, I want a say in the team and I want to have some people. Ross Brawn, he brought himself. Jean Todt, I think, was already there 1 year before Schumacher was. And Rory Byrne, I think, came because Ross Brawn said that he wanted him, and Schumacher went with it because he trusted Brawn. So it's not only that he was a fantastic driver, it's that he knew that he needed the right people to not only be a fantastic driver, but to win the races that he won.
Yeah. Exactly. Jason taught me to drive, Jim taught me how to be, and Michael taught me how to win. Because the way that he won every time the way that he won, it was never simple, it was never easy, it was always hard fought for. And that's something I will never tire of watching.
19 quali laps in the middle of the race.
Exactly. exactly.
Heavens to Betsy. I can't even get one quali lap right.
No. To get 19 in a row.
In the middle of the race where you don't have
Middle
the
of the race.
quali setup and tires and whatnot.
And the fuel load's higher, and absolutely. I think that just about wraps us up for this month of WromComms. But if you've made it this far, first of all, please do leave a like on the video or a heart wherever you are listening to this. And we need a question for next month's edition. I will let Cody choose that one because he's the one that's going to be hosting it next month.
All right. What is your favorite car and track combo, and why?
Nice.
Fits very well with the Automobilista 2 community cap, as every team, every community there chooses one car and track combination, and then they all drive on that and all on the others. So, let's see what they all say.
Absolutely. So it's been a little longer than an hour, but we always enjoy these monthly get-togethers, and now you can too. A quick reminder: if you are a part of our Patreon at patreon.com/RomComms at the Formula Ford level or bronze, then you'll be able to listen to us recording these podcasts generally the weekend before the podcast releases. But if you want to get ahead, that's where you need to go. So until next time, I have been Ike, and I've been joined by Cody and Serta. Next month, what on earth will the news bring? Until we get there, remember, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other on the podium. Goodbye.
Bye. Cody, you want to say goodbye?
I did.
We didn't hear it.
Bye!
There you go.